Welcome back, YouTubers. This is a review of Figma number 370, the Nero Claudius figure from Fate Extra, Grand Order, and Extella. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. It's very hard to get it exactly right. Some of these names are ones I'm not totally sure I've got them right. This specifically, though, is the Fate Extella version. It's because it has this shield, which was not on the original figure in the other two works I mentioned. But anyway, let's get to it. I'll also be doing a quick review of this figure, which was a bonus that was given away with Fate Extra CCC, or 3C sometimes. It was a follow-up to the original Fate Extra game, and is the same character, but in an alternate costume. Anyway, let's get started. First, let's do the figure. Now, it does come with a pre-order bonus, and just in case anyone asks, I will not be selling my pre-order bonus. Someone asked me about that on the Lee Showrun figure. Just so you know, I do not sell my pre-order bonuses. I'm a collector of this kind of stuff, so I kind of want to keep it. Anyway, but this one is an extra face. This is of her with her eyes closed, as you can see here. Now, I will say that I do really enjoy extra faces for characters, mainly because you can... Well, to be honest, some of the faces are very similar with the Figma line. And you can get bored with the same ones over and over again. But here's a quick look at the back of the box now. As you can see, it's your standard box art. Shows off all the little things that are in it to an extent. The shield and the fact that you don't have to have the shield on her arm. But yeah, pretty standard. Anyway, let's get to the figure itself. Now, one thing I should mention is there was another version of this figure released with the original Fate Extra game. Unfortunately, it was never released in the US. It was a bonus given out with the game, which was depressing because I bought the Fate Extra game when I found out it was released in the US. When I discovered it was released, I went right over and grabbed the only copy they had at the GameStop in my area. I was quite happy to get it. And I remember playing that game all the way through. It was a lot of fun. Though the character I played with initially was not Saber here, the Nero version, but Archer. Mainly because he is one of my favorite characters. The Archer I'm referring to is, and this is a small spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't watched it, Emiya. For those of you who don't know and don't mind being spoiled, Emiya is the main character of the original game, Shiro Emiya. It's due to a time paradox that he is basically running into his future self, who doesn't like him very much. Irony. I think we'd all dislike ourselves in the future if we met ourselves in the past. Call me crazy. That's just one of those things that I've seen happen a lot in movies and cinema. Anyway, this one comes with an extra forearm for this shield that it comes with. As you can see, it's a big gold one, which is from Fate Extella. It's pretty standard, as you can see. Extra arm just pops on. But it's a nice additional part, and I do like that they gave us an extra arm, and it's not something we have to slide on. I don't mind those if it's a small part, but something big like this really does call for an extra arm or something. Alright. That's all the little fiddly bits. Let's see what we have here. Well, we've got her with her face, with her mouth open yelling, and one with her eyes closed laughing. And the extra, of course, but also the one she's got on now, her standard face. Now, it also comes with her sword. It translates a couple of ways, but it's like Origin of Flame. Basically, it's a fire-based sword, if any of you are looking for the game mechanic in there. Has your standard Figma bag in there, so the usual good stuff. And here's the instruction manual. So, yeah, basically, you're supposed to put this little gold cuff on first, then this arm. Also, here's the back of the figure. Like the other one, it's got its plug port on the bottom on the dress, which makes a lot of sense for this figure just because it's got such a wide skirt that it would throw the balance off. But yeah. Unlike the bride version, which is what it's frequently referred to for the alternate, this one does have a stand with the additional part for the small bend. I'm not really sure what to call it. I don't think it really has a term, but basically this little extra stand part here that goes on the end here for where it plugs into the figure. Another part is this little bit of gold epauletting, which apparently goes on her shoulder in some way. I'm looking at the instructions right now. Actually, this is pretty simple. You just slide it under this gold pauldron and just slide it over. Just fits underneath it, apparently. Or over it, actually. Maybe. Gotta say, I'm a little worried about this part. These small gold parts here, they're kind of on the soft side. I worry that those would break easily or get lost or fall off. So yeah, pretty cool. The shield just clips on here. So yeah, we got that part. And of course it comes with your standard set of hands and the extra wrist plug in case you break or lose one. Though, with the number they've been putting out, it's really unlikely you'd lose them. More likely you'd break one, is my feeling. But yeah, pretty good figures so far. The one problem so far I can see is that the dress is a solid piece. Unlike some of the other ones I've seen, it doesn't have like slats in it so that the pieces can be moved around independently. This is all one really big piece that you're going to have to manipulate around. So that might be a turnoff for some people. As you can see, it's all one big giant piece, as I said. But, I mean, that's not a bad thing necessarily. And there's your standard set of hands, including one for gripping the sword in either hand, which I always like. I do like that these figures have hand grips for both because, well, I'm a lefty, and the problem is I never understood why people don't include left-handed accessories in some figures. It just baffles me. But there you have it for the most part. It's a pretty solid figure. Few small things I would say could be improved, like the dress being made with slats so that you could manipulate it more easily. And also, trying to put the hand on this one is a little trickier due to the way her little frilled cuffs on her arm work. It's not quite as easy as I thought it would be, but you can do it with a little jiggery pokery. And of course, there you have the sword in hand. Just pop the handle off, slide it on, and you're good. But there's the figure overall. Pretty good, and I really like it. It also fills in a void in my collection, as I only had the Bride version from Fate 3C. Sorry, Fate Extra 3C. And there was the original, which I could have looked for, but it goes for a small fortune online, especially because frequently it's packaged still with the game, which is a PSP game, which means it's those big UMD discs. And yes, I did buy the entire game in order to get the Bride version of Saber. That one was a bit of a splurge on my part. I sort of regret doing that because it was a little more than I wanted to pay, and unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a good translation of the story. I'm not really worrying about the gameplay much, it's just I can't understand Japanese to the degree that is necessary for me to properly play the game. It doesn't matter in the original Fate Extra that they did bring over because it's all subtitled, and even the bits that aren't, that you hear during the fights, you can usually figure out what they're saying. Or at least the general gist. In fact, it was important during the last round of the tournament block because the enemy would say a key phrase, you would know exactly when to counterattack, because he would use his special move. In fact, if you're using Archer, you can deploy a skill called Uro Iris, which creates a shield that blocks any attack and basically nerf his most powerful move. That was actually one of the funniest things. His big special finisher move with the power of the sun, and you block it with a move that is quite literally the personification of multiple tanned ox hides. And I'm not even joking about that. Ro Iris is basically supposed to be based off of an oxhide shield that was multiple layers that could block spears and such. But anyway, let's do the Bride Saber here. As you can see, she's a lot different from the red saber you see here. She's got this long flowing bridle design, but with singed edges. I'm not sure why. I do like the coloring of this veil section here. Let me just focus it a bit better for you. It's got a really cool gradient color to it that I like a lot. The one thing I'm not so sure about is the belt area. These two belt parts are linked to the frills on the dress here, and the buckle is here. Overall, it's an interesting design, and I really do like it as an extra costume, but it's not really the red saber design. Of course, functionally in the original game, they're identical. It doesn't, unfortunately, change anything. She still has the same noble phantasm, which is basically the golden theater of madness, which basically is an arena which weakens her enemies and gives her increased power. And you cannot leave. It's based off of a bit of a story I've heard, which I do not know if it is true or false, or if they're taking liberties with the original, but Nero was apparently an egomaniac. The original one thought his poetry and such were great, but in fact it was pretty terrible. And he built himself a grand theater, but when people started leaving midway through, he locked the doors and barred people from leaving, forcing them to listen to his terrible poetry and plays. Fate worse than death, if you ask me. Anyway, this one doesn't come with much else. It's got an alternate hairpiece which just flips the little hair that's here to the other side. Your standard set of extra hands, though I should mention these are the older style where they are jointed here and have a little peg that goes in and out, as you can see. This is the original style of the hands. And a face of her being, it's hard to say, pouty maybe? An interesting thing I had wondered before I bought this was, are the faces interchangeable on these ones? Do they use the same plugin? I'm going to see here. No, looks like they aren't. Yeah, the new Nero one is slightly wider, so the plug on the head is bigger. So you won't be able to swap the faces around, unfortunately. Bit of a sad point there, but not much you can do about that. Either way, I'd say both figures are really good. If you can get this Bride Saber, it's kind of expensive, but if you like the Nero version of Saber, or Red Saber as she's frequently called, it's well worth it. But if you're like many people, the Red Saber from Fate Extella will fit the bill just as well. Plus, it's nowhere near as expensive. Another good thing is this one means that you don't have to pay a ton for the Fate Extra version that came with the game, because that will cost you a pretty penny if you decide to get it. Either way, I'd say this is definitely one to put on the shelf with the other Fate series Figmas. At any rate, please like and subscribe, comment below, share this video, and ring the bell below so you don't miss any of my other reviews, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao!